All right, welcome to the Underdog Ecom podcast, where two ecom brand founders are figuring out in real time.
Yeah, we're not here to preach. We're here in the thick of it, making mistakes, testing all sorts of ideas, and really sharing the journey of how we've been growing these brands from day zero. Hopefully you learn a little bit, perhaps come away with some ideas that save you time and money. And so if you're tired of the same glittery D2C advice from those 9-figure gurus, you're here in the right place.
Let's get into it.
All right, what's up, everybody? We're back, episode 40, and there's a lot going on right now. Jack, you've been using something interesting. You've been telling me about this off air. It's one of those popular things that a lot of people, I think, have been diving into the last couple months. People have seen it popping up in the D2C sphere, and some of the details of it are pretty wild. It's an app called Outer Signal, and I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just heard about it through, I guess it was a podcast. We're probably both pretty late to this, but yeah, it's kind of a different thing. Like it's basically using publicly available data, kind of takes all the stuff about your customers and presents it to you in this really interesting way in terms of data about your customers, like customer personas, ICP. You can actually look at individual customers and what their jobs are, what their earning potential, like what they're earning, what their house is worth. It's a pretty crazy thing. Like I never thought, I didn't think there was that much data out there to be able to pull this stuff together. But I guess when you're pulling from thousands and thousands of Shopify stores and how public everything is these days, I guess it's there. But it's pretty cool. I mean, I've just been diving into it a little bit, but it's kind of interesting to learn more about your customers like this.
It is kind of crazy. What's wild is in a prior life, years and years and years ago, I was an anti-money laundering investigator, and so we did basically evaluate situations and analyze like sketchy situations to see if it warranted further review and like submitting people to authorities and all those sorts of things. And so like we had a lot of resources that were not necessarily public information, and so it's funny to see this kind of come full circle, and they're probably accessing a lot of the same stuff in the same ways, maybe different stuff as well, but it's wild to see like what you can find out. It's kind of scary too, but it is the world we live in, unfortunately or fortunately. As you've been digging through, what are like the ways you've been using it, or what are the ways you think you could use it for people out there that might be thinking about this?
Yeah, and I think there's things that I wouldn't have thought about when I first started. I thought I would just learn a bit more about our customers, and that's certainly useful. Like this is part of it that's, I just to mention everyone out there, like we're not affiliated with them. Although if they wanted to, who knows? But we're not affiliated with them.
We like paying bills.
Yeah. But no, there's a cool thing here with like these personas, which I've been looking at a lot, because I'm pretty sure most of us kind of guess who our customer persona is. Like everyone loves to say like, who's your target customer? And it's like, you basically just like splurge out a load of guesses. That's what I do anyway. Like you kind of know your customer, but like you're not got this like aggregate data of your customer, right? I mean, at least in most senses. So it gives you quite a few different like types of people as well. And you can download it as a PDF. So I've got like, we've got obviously like a racket enthusiast, like a tennis, like they name it, I guess it's all done through AI, but like a tennis enthusiast. They've also got like, for example, the executive traveler. So it says high earning corporate leaders, C-suite executives, finance managers who live demanding travel heavy lives. But then it's also about how they also like to keep fit and sport and things like that. So that was kind of what I thought about some of our customers, but it's like, it's pulling through all the data of like age, income, work, products they bought from other stores, all this type of stuff, which is really interesting. And you can download it, and it's been really good for like Claude, for example. Like if I can like download it, or I can say like, okay, I'm trying to target this type of customer with this type of copy. Is there anything that maybe I should mention or change? And you can like, it can pull through that data. So it's pretty cool to use in other places. And I've heard about a few other brands using it for spinning up landing pages for those different personas and things. I haven't done that, but I think you could do that.
Yeah, basically like hyper segmenting a lot of your marketing and your efforts that way, whether it's ads or creative or like emails, all the things. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, and there's stuff I haven't even looked into here, so I know I'm probably not doing them justice. But like, there's some high level stats which are really cool. There's like your average age. So ours is they give average and median, which is interesting because it kind of helps you better understand things. Because otherwise, average is kind of taking into the extremities into account, and so if you go look at median, it can actually be a bit more revealing. But But like, for example, like ours is like average age of 47, median age of 46. And then you can see like the biggest segment is between 36 and 45. So it's like, oh, okay. So actually like the biggest segment is that age group, like mid 30s to mid 40s. And so there's some interesting stuff there, like what things I didn't know. I thought customers I thought they're probably around that age, but then for example, 72% male. I thought it was more maybe 60-40 or something. So that's interesting. A lot of this stuff is like useful, and there's other stuff where you're just like, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do with that, right? For example, like average property valuation, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I guess it gives you a better idea of their purchasing power, I guess. But and it also, you can look at individual customers as well. And the great thing is when you look at individual customers, it'll tell you what persona they fit into that it gave you. So it'll be like the executive travel will be like this one, and it will tell you. So that's pretty cool. But one thing is really interesting as well is looking at that, at those personas and things. You can see like what's our lifetime value between them, what's our order value between them, what's the order count between them, like returning rates, things like that. So you can actually see like actually also what segments are actually performing better for you as a brand, which is really interesting. Again, what you would then do with this data is hard to say, because like, a lot of this stuff is, in my opinion, is slightly out of your control. Like when you're like advertising on Meta, I guess you could try and create more creative that might appeal to that type of person or the type of language you use. But I think is still useful when you're creating things to kind of have that ideal person in mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of just like auxiliary supplemental information sources like this that provide additional data points basically to like hone in, for about lack of a better word, on the target person that you're going after. And it's hard to say at the end of the day, like, if you can actually like A/B test this, right? Like send out an email that's catered directly to the personas that they've listed and segmented to those people, and test that against someone that's just broad and sent out to everyone in terms of copy and like that sort of thing. So it's hard to know like what I think for the smaller brands, like something like this doesn't necessarily apply because you're still trying to hit the biggest swings possible. But like when you're a bigger brand and you've got a staff on board that's doing a bunch of different things, and there's someone in charge of marketing and e-commerce and that sort of thing, like they can take these data points and help to refine and kind of squeeze out more revenue and like go that extra mile, that incremental dollar. And so it's interesting. I feel like it can, like you said, like a lot of it is really fascinating, but like how is it actually useful? It's hard to say. It's just more, some of it I feel like is kind of noisy, but like and especially at the end of the day when you're a small brand with like one or two people or that sort of thing, trying to figure out like what is the biggest swing. I don't know if it like I think it sounds really interesting, and I fear that if I actually signed up I would spend too much time looking at it and not enough time focusing on the bigger things that need to happen. But that's just my personality type. And so I don't know. It's kind of cool. It's cool that there's like tools out there there's just so many tools in ecom.
Yeah, and I think like you're right, but there's a bit sneaky. I mean, I say sneaky. I mean, every business has to make money, so I don't want to like, tramp on every business model. But like they charge you per customer they analyze, which is like per order basically, or not per order but per customer, which is kind of crazy, especially if you're doing a lot of orders.
Yeah.
But the cool thing they do is they do the first 1,000 customers for free, so you can actually get a good idea. Well, again, 1,000 customers depends on how big your brand is, right? If you've got, you've got 100,000 customers, 1,000 is probably not a good representation. But if you've got, you're a smaller brand, it can be a better representation. And I think the reason they only do 1,000 is because you need to then allow you to keep paying in order for that data to get better, basically. So
yeah.
This is like a little bit sneaky in my opinion. I think it's a great idea, and it's a great tool. I think it's this huge amount of opportunity to use it to better understand your customers, basically. But I think just wary of like that type of business model where you're kind of also, what do as you get bigger, or as time goes by, you have less and less want to give it up because that data is more and more accurate. And if you give it up, like how, so I just don't like things like that. So I wasn't actually planning on, quite honestly, using these guys for a long time unless I saw a big use case for it that suddenly came in, just being perfectly honest. But I do think like the initial analysis and getting an idea for your customers are and who those personas and things like that, that's really helpful because you can get you just get a better idea of like how to position yourself towards them.
Yeah, as an operator, I don't really like the business models or like the cost model where it feels like when it's that sort of usage based, it feels like you're getting punished for being bigger or whatnot. And I know what's interesting is I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a really big, in my mind, he's like a big name in the space in ecom, runs a really cool SaaS that I look up to and stuff, and has been doing it for a while in ecom. And he was telling me that, because I've been working on this little ecom SaaS in my spare time and trying to figure out what I want to do with that. Like, do I make it into a SaaS or I just keep using it myself? I'm not sure what to do there. I don't really have room or capacity to take on running another business. And there's so many micro decisions under the hood. And we were talking about pricing and modeling out the pricing structure and how I, as an operator, gravitate towards like the flat fee, the judge me, really good value, I forgot the CompSlayer guy. He says cheap but doesn't suck or something like that. His like motto for software, which I find hilarious and awesome. And I'd love to like adhere to that if I build the SaaS and stick to that model. But it's like on the other side of the door when you're running it, like does that actually work, and does it work at scale? And like there's so many other things to it, and I kind of feel like torn in both directions, but I agree. I don't really love when it's a usage-based model like that for pricing.
Yeah, and then like for example, I mean, I always think about like Matthias at Clio, for example, like how it's $29 a month, and then he's got like 8-figure brands using it and paying $29 a month. Great from like a marketing perspective that you can say like this huge brand is still only paying $29 a month, but like I often think like how are you making that work financially? Like how are you making any money? Because like the amount of like orders you're processing for just them alone, and you're charging $29 a month. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's economies of scale. As like you scale up, the price gets better and that sort of thing. But yeah, I imagine the database costs and the server costs and usage costs and stuff like that. It's like that's what I've been toying with, is like looking at my SaaS. I initially was thinking like 100 a month or something like that and keep it flat. But it's like I don't know if that I need to, you don't know until you know. But it's like, will that actually, if some big 8-9 figure brand comes along, and will that actually work? I don't know. Who knows? It's hard to say.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to bring up something else as well. So we were chatting off air a bit about Nothing. You're sporting their earbuds at the moment, which I mean, they do some awesome designs. They honestly do. Like their design is so good. And I think from what we want to talk about, I think we're talking more about the tech side of things, but generally, I actually think that they're such a cool reference for ecom, because if you, from a design perspective, you do something like so different and well, like the product kind of takes care of itself in terms of virality and stuff like that. And I think they're a really good example of that, because they're in like the most competitive space. And they actually started with I think they started with earbuds, am I right? Before they did phones and things like that. I think so.
Pretty sure.
So like they've done a cool thing of like really trying to make products very interesting and different in a very crowded, competitive, economies of scale place, which I think is just incredible. But yeah, so first of all, I think that's a really cool example of like a brand that's like doing something different and seems to be paying well off for them, like pretty well. And I don't know what their financials are, but I think at least from a volume perspective, it's worked in their favor. But the other thing is about like their site. I mean, like we were just looking at their site beforehand, and obviously you can give me your thoughts as like with your dev background. But like it seems to me like almost like a portfolio type of like site, in the sense that it's like not very ecom focused, right? And very visual, but also like not necessarily that easy to navigate, and just very, very out there. So I wanted to kind of just get what your thoughts are, and like whether you think like actually that type of thing nowadays is almost stronger proposition than like heavily CRO navigation search, like almost like the other end of the spectrum from like the Amazon style, everything you just like even my grandmother could buy from there sort of thing, and it will go in the other episode of the spectrum where it's very, it's very like it's very engaging but almost like confusing at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely violate a lot of best practices when it comes to web usability and CRO and all the things. And it's interesting because I think they're one of I like them as a brand. I like that they are one of the only disruptors left in like the hyper competitive phone market, tech market. Like no one really does what they're doing and sticks out. Where there used to be a lot of different brands, there's basically like Samsung and Apple making phones. It seems like these days in terms of who the Gen Pop buys from. And so I like that they're different, and I think you're right, like that it plays to their brand. I imagine their percentage of revenue from online sales from their website it's got to be like a very small, like single digit percentage or something, I would think. Maybe not, but and they're playing to a certain niche, so it's like they're catering directly to their avid phone buyers that are different and want to be a little bit different. I think they've had different variations of the site in the past. It looks like it might be headless now. I didn't actually like pull up any spec details on it beforehand. But kind of like you're like, the question is interesting, like headless versus not headless. It's the vast majority, I would say, up until maybe the last couple months, I would say a vast majority of people on Shopify should use just hosted Shopify. Like that pendulum has swung quite a bit from headless to hosted because hosted is so much, there's no, like all the advantages are kind of gone. And now with AI coding and how fast that's innovating and how quickly it's learning new skills and learning Shopify, which I'd say in general, Claude and Codex and the other platforms out there for coding are better at non-Shopify coding because there's more data to train them on it, but they are getting better at Shopify. And so there's more possibility, I think, now because, a year ago, I would say if you have a full-time dev that you want to pay $200K a year to maintain your headless build, go for it, at least one dev, and just flush the cash because I don't think it's worth it unless there's some like huge reason staring you in the face to go headless. It's not worth it. But nowadays, you're right. Like you can run these sites and manage them for the most part using AI and not have to worry about like a full-time dev or whatever. And you might not even need to have a coding background to manage it or whatnot. And maybe we will see more unique online experiences in the Shopify realm, more headless. That might be more of an opportunity for people to pop up and do their own thing. I don't know. I still feel like for underdog operators, like it's kind of a shiny object, like not a big value push, not a big ROI on time. Don't just use the Shopify and use the hosted theme or whatever and use one of the good ones kind of thing. Everything is getting faster, I'd say. Like I don't know, I've done thousands of commits via AI coding, agentic coding in the last couple months. And so I feel pretty versed in the capabilities and the technologies that it offers. And it's not, things will still break. It's still definitely not perfect. I catch it all the time doing things that shouldn't, even though I've set up like rigid guardrails and that sort of thing. It's still not 100% perfect. I mean, no human is, but I see it as a junior dev in a lot of ways that you kind of have to guide and it still will make mistakes. So I'd say like, especially because a website is a primary driver of revenue for a brand, I would urge much caution towards agentic coding your own site without a ton of guardrails in place. But overall, I think you're right. Like, I think it will be interesting. Hopefully there will be some pretty wild, fun, cool online experiences for brands that do headless. I started my Shopify, I think we talked about this in the pod before, but my Shopify storefront was actually first a headless build because I was like, I'm a developer, I can do this. And this was years before agentic coding. And just the amount of integrations that you need and upkeep and maintenance for apps and all sorts of stuff, it quickly I was not a fan.
I definitely think the app side of things sounds like a bit of a nightmare. Because not even all apps are like necessarily, going to work with headless. So I think it must be like a big ask for an existing store to migrate. And you have to be very specific, I guess, about your tech stack and things because you can't just choose anything. And I think I think you're right. I mean, I think you're obviously right in terms of like it's a shiny object. The only thing you get pushed back on, and I think it's easy to push back on this and not do it yourself and just say it. So I'm putting that in there first. But is that I just think like at the same time, you do need to be a bit different nowadays, I think, in some way or another. It doesn't necessarily mean your site has to be different, but I do think that giving yourself like a unique perspective, or like just your branding being different in some way, or your experience being different in some way, and of course, most importantly, your product being different and better in some way, is ultimately, how you differentiate yourself. I mean, I think product is obviously top of the pile there, but I do think like there seems to be some opportunity nowadays for smaller brands to maybe do some more interesting things, and to divert a little bit from the status quo, I guess, which is, and I even thinking beyond like, is a Shopify, is a website, is a way people want to buy nowadays, homepage, collection page, product page, cart. Is that, it might be, I don't know, but I'm just, and it's hard for small brands to test it out, but at the same time, I do think there's going to be some brands that come up doing some interesting things that people haven't like thought of, and they're going to, because it's kind of new and there's a bit of arbitration with it, I think they're going to do well. So
there's underneath the surface, there's the super trendy LinkedIn question of like, not a question, it's more of like a topic that I see people on LinkedIn that try and go viral on LinkedIn posing or talking about like how agentic storefronts are the future and no one's going to buy on a website in like the next year or whatever, which I don't believe at all, but
right.
Those posts go viral on LinkedIn and stuff, and it's an interesting question. You'd mentioned actually, speaking of agentic storefronts, you've been testing that a little bit, haven't you?
Not really. I've been thinking about it. I mean, the thing that I haven't got my head around is that I don't think I want to go to a store and just chat with a chatbot. Like, I think that's what you do with an LLM, and it's not what you want to do on a store. So I don't want to create an experience that feels like that in any way, because I don't think anyone wants to do that. I mean, I think it can be useful in a certain context, right? If they've maybe stores can have like a product information section where they can chat and they can get quick information. That's easier than having to read things and find the right area whatever it is, the right drop down that's located in. I think maybe there's a use case for that, but I would not want to create a store where like it's just a chat, because I feel like you're just, what's the point of doing that when someone can literally chat and buy on on any of these LLMs? So I don't want to do that, but I do think that it seems to be that there must be a more interesting way for people to interact. If you just think about like when someone goes into a retail store and they're holding the product and they might be talking to the assistant's giving them information while they're talking, but they're holding and feeling and visualizing. There must be something closer to that in the age we're moving into. That might be like 5 years away, I don't know, but I feel like that, or 10 years, I don't know. But it feels like that has to be more of the goal, with sort of buying online. I don't think that like static pages are. I mean, I hope it's not where the internet is going to stay, because, yeah, I don't know. That's my take on it. But I definitely wouldn't want to like turn Kanch's website into like a chat bot interface. I feel like that would just be the worst thing ever.
It would. It's kind of it's a funny idea to like throw around. If we had an extra week off from life and everything else going on,
exactly,
to like build out a secondary site that was just a chatbot or something. It would be interesting. I feel like from what I've seen, because I've had the CommSlayer AI on the site for a while for mine, I did a good amount of training for it, I think, and did a lot of documentation and stuff. It's hard to do it well and do it right. You almost need someone there like full-time monitoring it and then like plugging holes and gaps and that sort of thing in the data and everything. So it would be a huge effort, I think, to do that. Did you say you've been running GPT ads earlier?
Yes. Interesting, because I think they launched maybe like a week ago. I was at 10 days ago, or something like that. And I was at a dinner, and someone said, when I was mentioning about my issues with running ads on Facebook, they're like, "Oh, you should check this out." And I thought, well, I'll just sign up. And I think I got like Monday, I got like an email saying, "Oh, we've approved you," because I think they're manually approving like the ad accounts basically. So I didn't really think anything of it, and I thought, so I've basically just been running it a little bit, but there's not a whole lot to say on it other than it's very like minimal right now. There's no you can add like the pixel and everything, and you can add like track conversions, which is actually more than I expected, to be honest, because I didn't know how they would have got it together that quickly. But then you can basically only run traffic campaigns. or like engagement campaigns. So engagement and traffic. And so I thought I'll test out a traffic campaign and see. And so it's just started. It's one thing as well. It's only just started to spend. It took like 3 days for it to start spending. And there's like a notice on there that says, we're being very careful about this, so you're likely not to see much spend. And you've just set a cost per click as well, a bit like you would with Google. So it's very different from, I'd say it's definitely much closer to Google ads than it is Meta ads, definitely. So it's much more like the copy, you can add images, but it's not like you're not creating nice ad creative and stuff. It's more like the copy and an image to go with it. And like the context behind which you want your ad to show up. So if it's tennis or if it's outdoors or whatever it is, like you have to give those context so that it understands what some other conversations and context someone might be talking about that might then at some point want to show them the ad to what you have. So it's a bit about like understanding, I guess, what people might be chatting with an LLM for in general. Because my understanding as well, the way it works is that it's not like not like somebody is searching for like a tennis bag on ChatGPT and then we search, and then ChatGPT says, well, how about this one? This is a promoted result. It's not like that. It's like it's just like it gains context about things you might be interested in, and it serves you ads around that kind of context and not like in your chat related to what you just searched for, sort of thing. So it's kind of a mix, I guess, between Facebook ads where it's kind of like top of funnel and Google search where it's like very bottom of funnel. It's somewhere in the middle. But it'd be interesting to see how it does, because I feel like they've got like 1 billion, is it like almost 1 billion users now or something?
Wow.
So 800 million, something like that. So it's sizable. And so for that, with that huge audience, you kind of hope that it becomes a channel that could see some meaningful growth. And there might be, especially at the beginning, some opportunity to kind of like get some cheaper conversions, hopefully.
Interesting. Do you know if the ads, do they only show to free users?
That is a very good question. I do not know. And that would limit it substantially. Well, actually, no, because most people don't pay, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like the majority of their users, the majority of that billion, I think, off the top of my head, is not paying. I have a paid account, and I haven't seen ads, so I don't know.
Neither have I. I think it's only in the... Well, actually, I was going to say, I haven't seen it because I'm in the UK, but I think it's only in the US. But okay. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's only free. It would make sense for it to only be free accounts. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see. It's a cool opportunity, I think, especially how much people are interacting with these things. But I think a lot of it will come down to their, sounds bad, but their willingness to use the data, right? I think they probably have the data for it to be a very like strong platform for ads, but they also have their reputation at stake. And I think the last thing they want to be seen as doing is basically like selling off your chat data basically to any advertiser. So it's a real tough one.
Interesting. Huh. Well, we'll keep an eye on that, I guess, as things go along.
I do think, like in general, there seems to be some, which is a nice time for us. I think there seems to be, Meta is still probably definitely the king, but I think it seems to be that there's some more opportunities from advertising and things like that showing up. For example, I think with like YouTube, for example, it was Google I/O a few days ago, and they were like mentioning their universal cart and being able to shop directly in YouTube, and it seems to be that we're hopefully moving into like a time when there's just a lot of opportunity for people to buy your stuff in different ways, and there might be some downsides of it, like maybe less traffic directly to your website, but generally it seems like there's some opportunities for more exposure, hopefully, and hopefully that will also level the playing field in terms of like how expensive Meta ads, for example, are right now and things like that.
Yes, I would definitely like if Meta, if I could have an alternative to Meta ads. Interesting.
Yeah, I sent you this on, because it might be worth mentioning on here, but I sent you this image I saw from X, from Northbeam, who do the who do like a lot of attribution data, a lot of stores, and they were showing how like interestingly conversion rates gone down like since January completely steadily. It was something like average conversion rate 1.5%. I think it's down to like 0.6% now over the last few months with Meta. But also like cost per click, or is it like CPM or cost per click? I can't remember. It's also going down. So like they're technically cheaper to run ads somehow, but also way worse conversion rate. Like literally like less than half as good.
Wow.
And that's across all those stores, and it's really interesting to see. And it's like obviously not good for us, but like at the same time, it's weird, and I think maybe it's because Meta's doing so much AI stuff. Like they're just like jamming AI into every single thing, and I don't know whether like it's just that they're going through this massive transition period, and we're basically suffering as a result of it. And it might be better on the other side. It's just that things haven't been worked out yet. It's generally been the case with Meta. Like when they've made these big changes, it generally doesn't help people in the short term, and it becomes a bit better in the long term. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've said you've seen some pretty bad experience. I haven't been running much ads, as you know, so recently, so at least through Meta. So I don't know, but it definitely seems like a lot of people are suffering at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds like it's definitely, from what David Herman was saying, like he's seen it across the board. Like, he works with big brands and that sort of thing, and has a lot more exposure than our little sort of narrow viewpoint. But and just everyone chiming in on his post and stuff, like it's certainly been brutal. I've experienced that firsthand, where it just feels like nothing's working, and it's so hard right now. So hopefully that does, hopefully we get around the corner, and like you're saying, it's I don't know who's in charge of the Facebook business manager, ad manager, whatever it's called, but geez, it's just like can they just like settle and chill for a second and like not change everything. It seems like every day something is in a new position and something's opted in or something changes, and just like no consistency there. And then I'd be okay with that if performance was okay, but it's not on the back end.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't help that they've literally like got rid of like over 10,000 people or something in the last month. That doesn't help, I imagine. And they've like taken away a lot of their job posts and stuff. It's kind of crazy. I've not heard good things about inside. Especially I've been speaking to a lot of people speaking to a few different people inside of Meta, trying to get them to help me actually in the last few weeks, and like none of them have got good things to say about what's going on in that company. So I don't know.
Yeah, they as a company itself, I feel like there's a few like huge top 5 tech fumbles, I would say. One of them is Apple and Siri, how they were like the first and had 100% of the mind share in that specific voice to text sort of pseudo AI feature, and then just nothing for 10 years. Completely worthless in terms of a technology. And they were first out of the gate and everything. And I feel like Facebook with AI and Meta with AI, like then the talent and the capital and everything that they had, it's got to be like one of those top 5 tech fumbles, because the growth that OpenAI and Anthropic have seen is just astronomical. And even like Google's catching up and everything. Like they're just so far behind, even though they had the first vision. It's wild. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for like taking it back to like say you and I and other smaller ecom brands. It's tough because these tech companies have a bigger impact than like we can imagine on our businesses in many ways. They're the distribution that we need, even Shopify to an extent, and so it's difficult because we are so dependent on them, but at the same time we have so little control about these things they're doing and where they put their investments. And like there's been several different times, like Meta for example is like failed advertisers a lot in many ways, but at the same time where would we be without them, right? I mean, they're so many big brands have grown, so it's a difficult side in terms of navigating it and what to do next, and whether to actually split your budget into when you've got limited budget, do I split it into another area? Is this just a small dip, or is this going to be like this for the rest of the year? I mean, it's so hard for any brand to know, and it's like it is really hard. You can almost be like going from one difficult situation to a worse situation by moving, trying to suddenly understand a whole new platform or something to grow your business. But at the same time, there's only so long you can also be in, like, for example, from January to May. That's a long time for ads to kind of be declining, if that's the case. And so any brand is kind of by that point got to start thinking about like what else am I going to do.
Yeah, that's been on the top of my mind, is like how do I make up for that revenue drop and like cost increase and that sort of thing? Like what's the next? Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know what the magic bullet's going to be or the solve is going to be besides trying to be a cactus and stay alive.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's what it comes down to. I think because there's so many things changing, everything's evolving so quickly in the AI with all these tech companies, everything they're investing in, the opportunities that we talked about in terms of, selling on different platforms you couldn't sell on before. We don't know where it's going, but, surviving gives you the opportunity to make use of those at some point. I think yeah, it is just like a battle of surviving, and you want to grow obviously, and you want to try and grow, but I do think we're in a situation where it comes down to surviving and not growing, or trying to push things harder, push the pedal harder, and actually risking things. I think you got to go for the former, because I think we don't know where things are going.
Yeah, that's good. I almost think that could be a whole podcast where we deep dive into survival, not growth, because I think that is something that a lot of brands are probably facing, especially with all of these things going on. And be curious to talk through like ideas around that and like what to focus on and that sort of thing. Like I've got a bunch of things on my plate that I'm trying to figure out. Like, do I do this? Do I do that? Do I start doing in-person markets again? Like what makes the most sense to try and just stay alive?
And I think, I mean, not to go too far into it, but I think the problem like that we have is that we see on LinkedIn and X, like Everlane and all these brands, or Allbirds, that have just massive valuations. It's like, I think Everlane had a Series F funding or something, like ridiculous, right? Huge amounts of money raised. Up until the very last minute, praised and praised and praised. Maybe not Allbirds, but a lot of these companies praised and praised and praised on the revenue, on everything. Yeah. And actually never didn't have that outcome, and because they've been so revenue focused, and yet the environment is still so revenue focused. Investors only want to talk about revenue. Even in D2C, you only matter when you can talk about what sort of revenue you're doing. Suddenly you matter if you're hitting 8 figures, or suddenly you're mattering if you're doing double digit. It's like that's what matters. And then like nobody cares about, at least on the face of it, what is going on behind the scenes. And it's kind of crazy, because it's in some ways anyone can buy revenue, right? I mean, anyone can. I can pay you $1 to give me $1. So so like it's just kind of crazy that the environment we're in, and we fall into it. I fall into it. Pushing for that revenue and feeling like you're not going anywhere because you're not growing massively. And actually, then suddenly you realize out of the woodwork, all these companies are actually been struggling this whole time.
Insert Star Wars meme. It's a trap.
Yeah.
It's tough. That's good stuff. We are getting close to end of time. Was there anything else that we haven't covered yet that we wanted to before we wrap?
So.
Cool.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Maybe we can wrap then. Maybe that I think that last bit of the conversation there too is like extremely relevant for the underdogs out there, like the folks that are in the same shoes that we are in. And so I think, hey, people, if that resonates with you, let's talk about it more. Let us know in the comments and that sort of thing, and we can dive into it a lot more, because I think that's important stuff that we're facing off daily. Like, we're not trying to like hit this triple digit spend or whatever, or like growth numbers, targets, that sort of thing. I'm just trying to keep the line green at the end of the day, the net profit.
For sure.
Cool. Good stuff. Thanks everyone. Give us those reviews. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk to you later.
See you next one.